Shane, I'd like to ask you some questions. The first one is, who are you and when are you president?
Well, thanks, David. Appreciate this opportunity. So, yeah, I'm Shane Rogers. I currently am the president of Chartered Accountants Worldwide Network USA. By background, I'm an Irish chartered accountant. I qualified back in the early 90s as an article clerk. I had worked for Price Waterhouse, as the firm was called, back in Dublin. Before, once I qualified in the early 90s, I transferred over to Price Waterhouse, New York, and then subsequently had a career in investment banking at Credit Suisse, mainly in internal audit and sort of front office roles as well, and then transitioned to being the head of internal audit at Swiss Re in the Americas. And currently, I'm the global head of operational risk at Liberty Mutual Global Risk Solutions. So I've been pretty busy, but most of my career I've been based here in the United States.
Thank you, Shane. And you're in the final year of your presidency at the moment, so we'll be seeing a change when we do our AGM later in 2026, probably around November.
Yes, I'll be sort of rolling out of my. I'll be completing two-year terms as president. That ends, I believe, in November this year, October, November this year, and we will have a new president of the board. So I'll become, I guess, the former ex officio member of the board president. So yeah, we're looking forward to those changes. More to come on that at some point.
Yes, you'll take over the past president position from Chris Easton. And so the next question for you is, tell us about your involvement with ACAUS, Chartered Accountants Worldwide Network USA, and what achievements you'd like to highlight.
Yeah, no, thanks, David, for that question. Now, interestingly, I was probably one of the members who also had been quite active, or certainly had attended plenty of the ACAUS activities back in when I was in public accounting here in New York in the mid 90s. Was fairly regular occurrence that we would go to the ACAUS dinner, and the big four firms or big eight firms at the time used to sponsor a table. So my involvement in ACAUS goes back to the mid 90s, and then you sort of change your career, change your role, have a family and all that stuff, so you sort of became distant. So I moved away, wasn't involved for a long time, and then the pandemic struck, and I noticed one day that there had been I think an online conference, or an actual conference that had materials posted that I think you had posted, David. I found them very interesting, and a position opened up to possibly join the board, I believe, as the vice president, which I was keen to volunteer for and apply for, and I did. And I did that, I believe, in 2020 or 2021. My memory doesn't serve me exactly correct, but I was successful in that. And then from there, so I really became involved in Chartered Accountants Worldwide Network USA, during the pandemic. And of course, everything had gone online. It was a big change in terms of a big move to online from the in-person networking and activities that had preceded the pandemic. And it was it was very, very, it was a very interesting time. So spent a lot of time with Chris and David and the other members of the executive team, really focusing on the content. And I think the content that we've offered, particularly during the pandemic, we honed the delivery of online content and online activities and services and networking. But I'm really proud of both the quality and the depth and the professionalism of the online offerings. So we do lots of webinars. I'll do an average about, I think, close to one a month. We also had various podcasts, which were again interviewing very interesting people and sharing great perspective. And then we had a mix of sort of in-person and online networking that's largely progressed back to being in-person networking across the chapters. So I'm very proud of the professionalism of the content, and that it adds value to our members. I'm also very proud of the fact that the executive team has worked really well together and has actually expanded the footprint. So we call ourselves Network USA, but actually in the last 4 or 5 years, we've established a number of chapters up in Canada. We've also established very successful chapters in Cayman Islands and Bermuda. And so we really are sort of positioning ourselves to become more of the Chartered Accountants Network Americas, Worldwide Network Americas, which I think is more apt given the footprint we have. The final thing I would say, which I'm very proud of, and I'm sure David is and everyone else, I'm really proud of the diversity of thought that we have and the diversity of people that we have. And we're all volunteers other than David, as everyone knows that. But the fact that, the executive team is 50% female, 50% male, that's a great achievement. And again, it demonstrates the progression in not just in our network, but also in the profession generally. And again, very proud of that. Very proud of all the contributions from the members of the executive team and the fantastic board that we have. We have such a variety and sort of depth of skills, people, characters at the board level. And again, I'm just so proud of all of that. So I've been really proud to have been part of this organization as a board member for almost 5 years. I said I'm wrapping up my second 2-year term as president, but I had about a year or so as in a vice president role before that. So yeah, onwards and upwards. I think we have great things ahead of us. There's been just great content. The world of chartered accountants is changing. Tremendous. Obviously, we're at the inflection point with the adoption of AI and AI becoming mainstream. And what does that mean for accountants? What does that mean for auditors? I spent a lot of my time as an internal auditor. There's tremendous changes going on in our world. And yet I still think chartered accountants are absolutely positioned to be there for their organizations, to add value, to lead by example, and to really, bring professional organizations, along and really to flourish and to thrive. So yeah, that's what I would say. They're the things I'm most proud about, David.
Thank you, Shane. And so the next question, and it's a little bit like the last one, but it's to focus on one of the things that you personally are proudest about achieving.
Yeah, I mean, it's again, I would probably go back to my comments just a moment ago. I'm most proud really of the content that the network produces for its members. Again, we're supported by great membership, not just here in the United States and the other locations I mentioned, Canada and the Caribbean, but we really get a lot of great speakers from overseas, from the parent Chartered Accountants Worldwide organization. And so again, the depth on the topic. So we cover great topics like AI and accountants. We've covered energy transition and leadership and organizations. There's just so many different topics that are very relevant to the world of chartered accountants, no matter your role. Again, whether you're a controller, a CFO, a chief executive, a risk professional, internal auditor, these types of sort of courses and sort of webinars are thought-provoking, and they really, I think, add value. So I think given our limited resources, we get well funded by our institutes, our home institutes, for giving our resources to be able to put on, I think, probably 8 to 10 really high quality webinars a year, plus podcasts and other learning activities. I'm very proud about it. And I'm very proud over the tenure that I've been involved as the president and the year or so as the vice president before that. I'm really proud of the pickup in the numbers. So the registration for events, it used to be when we started online activities, we would get 40, 50 people register for a webinar. Now, in some of our webinars, we get hundreds of people. We get 200, 300 people, maybe even more, registering and attending events. So I think we're having a bigger impact with our members here in the US and beyond. And I think we've, produced a tremendous catalog of professional webinars and materials for consumption, again, across the global community of chartered accountants.
Thank you, Shane. One last question, then I'll let you go. And that is, let us have one fun fact about yourself.
Fun fact about myself. Okay, well, some people know, but not too many people know that I'm very involved in music. I'm not a very good musician by any stretch. I wouldn't say that, but I'm very much involved and very much knowledgeable about rock music, blues music, heavy metal music. And so as part of this journey, and actually, interestingly, David, inspired, I think, by the first webinar I believe I did in 2022 back with Chartered Accountants Worldwide Network USA, was the future of internal audit. Where do we go from here? which was my first foray into doing a webinar, leading a webinar. And since then, I've actually decided to write a book, and I'm almost about to publish my book. It's the title of the book is "So You Want to Be an Internal Audit Rock Star," and it actually blends the world of internal audit leadership with various musical analogies from, let's say, various rock bands, heavy metal bands, some punk bands, some new wave bands, I guess. So mainly from the 70s and 80s, and melded those two topics together into a fun book. It's not technical, but it's a leadership book. And it's really intended to help internal auditors and risk professionals, operational risk compliance professionals, any assurance professional, really reflect on the human competency. So we all hear about AI. AI is a black box. It's another set of tools. It's fantastic. It can do amazing things. But let's not forget that the most important thing that will differentiate people are our human competencies, our ability to communicate, deliver messages to other people, influence things without control as internal auditors, be trusted, share perspectives, be forward-looking. So my book covers a lot of these sort of topics, and I will be hopefully doing a webinar at some point later this year on that very topic. So more to come. But the book is called "So You Want to Be an Internal Audit Rock Star." It should hopefully be published, let's hope, sometime early to mid-April 2026.
Thank you, Shane.
Thank you, Dave.